because purpose and meaning and life itself are interwoven. Good morning. My name is Reverend Bill Malden. I am one of your associate pastors here at the church. I work in family ministry, so most of my time is spent with children and with students and with their families, but I am glad to be here with you in worship this morning. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by the lack of meaning and purpose. This quote comes from a man named Viktor Frankl. Dr. Viktor Frankl was a psychologist in Vienna in the 1940s. And because he and his family were Jewish, they were taken into concentration camps during World War II. Frankl found himself spending 3 years in concentration camps. And at one point, he even spent time in the infamous Auschwitz camp. In the camps, his father died of starvation and pneumonia. His mother and his brother were murdered in the gas chambers. And his young wife, who he had married only 9 months before they were taken, passed away from typhus. But even in the midst of all this tragedy, even in the midst of this living hell, Dr. Frankl applied his wonderful psychological mind, and he noticed that those who lost their purpose, those who lost the meaning in their lives, soon lost the will to live. So, due to all he had seen and all that he had suffered, Dr. Frankl became convinced that the greatest task of any person is to find meaning in his or her own life. See, purpose and meaning in life itself are interwoven. Those who have no sense of purpose of life are significantly more likely to struggle with issues of anxiety, depression, and loneliness. We talked about this in our series back in January, Hope, a 4-letter word. We talked about the mental health crisis that we are experiencing as a country. And I believe that one of the ways that we can help heal this suffering individually and collectively as a community is by finding and living out the purpose of our lives. Dr. Frankl said that what we need is not a tension-less state, but rather the striving and struggling for some worthy goal. What we need is not to discharge of tension at any cost, but a call of a potential meaning of a life's purpose that is waiting to be fulfilled. He said that everyone has their own specific mission in life. Therein they cannot be replaced, nor can their life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is unique as their specific opportunity of implementing it. So, what is your purpose? If I asked you right now, what is your life's purpose, could you tell me? What worthy goal is calling out to you? What thing is calling out to you to fulfill it? What are you working to create? What important thing that does not exist or has not happened yet are you working to bring into existence? Where are you needed? And needed in such a way so as what you have to offer cannot be replaced or repeated. Where are you offering your gifts and your talents in a way that offers some good to the world that without you may go undone? Where is your life's purpose? Knowing your purpose clarifies and crystallizes how you live your life, because purpose and meaning and life itself are interwoven. So you may ask, okay, Smarty Pants, well, what is the purpose of your life? You're telling us to give this. What about you? So I'll tell you, I believe that I have too. The first purpose in my life, I believe, is to provide a stable, loving home and to prepare my children as well as I am able to live a good life in their relationships, in their work, in their communities, and with their Creator. My second purpose in life that I believe for me is to nurture and guide people of all ages into a life-changing and lifelong relationship with Jesus Christ so that they may become agents of justice and mercy out in the world. So it's with my purpose in mind that I am so excited to talk about our text this morning because I believe you might find your purpose in it as well. Our text this morning comes from the Gospel of John. chapter 21. It's verses 15 through 19. You've probably heard it before, but see if you maybe hear something new today. So when they finished eating, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" And Simon replied, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." Jesus asked a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Simon replied, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Take care of my sheep." He, being Jesus, asked a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was sad that Jesus asked him a third time, "Do you love me?" He replied, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. I assure you that when you were younger, you tied your own belt and you walked around wherever you wanted to go. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and another will tie your belt and lead you where you don't want to go." He said this to show the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. After this, Jesus said to Peter, "Follow me." So this text is following Peter's 3 denials of Jesus, of knowing Jesus, of Jesus' execution on a Roman cross, and his triumphant resurrection. The disciples have gone back to their old lives. They're back fishing. And Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, shows up on the beach. And Peter recognizes him. He jumps in the water and he swims to shore. Now, in my mind, the way I see this happening is just like in Forrest Gump, when Forrest sees Lieutenant Dan, and he's like, "Lieutenant Dan," and he just jumps in the water. I don't know if Peter did that, but in my mind, as I read this story, it's Peter, "Jesus," and he just jumps in and swims off. And I think it's interesting, and again, maybe not that weird. I think I've had salmon with breakfast before. It's weird to have a breakfast of fish when I read that. Every time I'm like, ugh. But again, if you're a fisherman, I guess that's the normal thing to have fish for breakfast, but it just sounds weird to my ear. But I want to talk about the text this morning, and I think we can find some meaning and some purpose as we work through it today. So in verse 15, we come back to the text, and it says, "When they finished eating, Jesus asked Simon Peter, 'Simon, son of John, do you love me?'" So in the Greek, one of the things that you need to know is that there are many words for love, and they have different meanings. And so this gets lost in translation into English. So imagine the way we use the word love. It's like, I love my wife and I love pizza. I mean, are those really the same? And so in the Greek, it's more obvious. And so Jesus asks Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" But the word here is agape. It's agape love. And agape love means to prefer the other, to put their needs above your own desires. And that's what he asks him. So what he's asking, what Jesus is asking is, will you make me Lord of your life? Will you love me with your heart, soul, body, and strength? And Peter replies, "Yes, I love you." But the thing you have to know here is he changes the word, the type of love that is being offered. He says, "I love you, I phileo love you." Phileo is brotherly love, again, like Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And phileo means I care for you, but I won't give my all for you. And Jesus tells Peter, "Feed my lambs." So the word here, feed, means to take care of, to provide nourishment for. And the lambs here is more like little lambs, the young and the innocent. So I believe the question here is, will you take care of the children? See, we have some amazing people in our church that help with this, because I think it's the question for us today. We have wonderful volunteers that volunteer with our children and with our students and have answered the call to feed the little lambs of Jesus. But I don't think enough of us have heard that call. So we ask our volunteers to volunteer for 4 months at a time. That's all the commitment is. But if we have people volunteering for 4 months, for children, for Sunday school, for students, for midweeks, all those sorts of things, that takes about 30 people to do that. We have about half that. So today, maybe your purpose is to feed the little lambs. I believe that they need you, but even more than that, I believe that someone out there today needs them. I think that you may need them to become your worthy effort to give to yourself, which will give your life purpose and meaning. Back to the text, Jesus asked a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Simon replied, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Again, this is that agape, phileo. Agape is asked for, but phileo is what is offered. And Jesus says to him, take care of my sheep. Now, the term here for sheep, the term here for take care of means to take care of, to guide. And sheep isn't really exactly what the word is. It really means all smaller, four-legged grazing animals. So it can be sheep, but it can also be cattle. It can be other things. And so will you look after, will you tend all the creatures of the pasture? I believe the question Jesus is asking is, will you help lead the flock? Will you be a leader? Maybe you've seen this picture. Do we have that? Maybe you've seen this picture or something like it on social media, talking about the difference between being a leader and a boss. See, a boss tells others what they need to do and gives their opinion, but without any participation. But one becomes a leader because of actions, not simply their words. Thank you. We don't need that. Thank you. And so the word here, sheep, is actually, again, more encompassing. And so I think that leaders, real leaders, need to connect to more than just those who are in their circle of friends, and to be aware of the cares and needs and hopes and dreams of others outside of their group. I want is the talk of a boss. How about we is the talk of a leader? A leader has agape love, preferring the needs of others over their own wants and desires. And maybe God has given you a heart for this. Maybe God has given you a heart for the needs of others and a passion to reach out and to build relationships beyond your circle, your normal circle of friends. Maybe you want to help make people's lives a little better. Maybe your purpose is to lead, to guide others, leading by action. You know, St. Francis said, preach the gospel always, and if necessary, use words. Maybe that's you. Maybe you can help lead us to some worthy goal that shares the gospel of Jesus Christ and makes the world a better place, a more just place, a more caring place for all. Back to the text of verse 17, he asked a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? This time Jesus asked Peter, but with the phileo language. Jesus has stopped asking for agape. He now has asked Peter, will you phileo, love me? Jesus meets Peter where he is. You know, Max Lucado has this great quote, God loves you just as you are, but he also loves you too much to leave you that way. Do you know that there's actually stages of faith and spiritual development? Maybe that's something you've heard of. Maybe it's something you haven't. But there's many understandings of how this works. But really the seminal work in this area, it comes from a book called Stages of Faith, The Psychology of Human Development. And here's the second part, In the Quest for Meaning. It's a good book. It's a good book if you want to help people find their purpose and meaning. And it should come as no surprise to you. It was written by a United Methodist pastor, a man named Reverend James Fowler. And he was also a professor at Emory Theological Seminary. But Fowler describes there being 7 stages of faith development that go 0 to 6. But what Reverend Fowler observed is that most active churchgoers, most Christians never mature past stage 3, which is what we actually begin that stage in our teen years. So why is that? I believe that it's because 0 to 3, we can grow and we can mature, but we are still like Peter in this story. Right now, we are struggling to dare to risk. We are struggling to dare to dream. We are struggling to dare to step into that deeper agape love. And so what does Jesus do? Jesus meets us where we are. Jesus meets us at phileo. I don't say that to belittle Peter. I don't say that to belittle anyone in this room, any of us. We are where we are in our growth, in our development. But I want you to know that Jesus meets you where you are. So if you're at stage 2, that's okay. Jesus is there with you. If you're at stage 3 or 4 or whatever, Jesus is there with you. Jesus is with us. But just as Jesus called Peter to more, to agape love, I believe that Jesus is calling us to more, to grow and to mature and to step into a deeper relationship. And that doesn't mean learn more. Learning more and maturing and developing are not simply the same thing. So actually what I think helps move us out and beyond stage 3 is living out the truth of the gospel that we already know. But before now, we have not gotten to the place where we're ready to commit our lives to it. There's another minister who does great work around this, a man named Reverend Greg Hawkins, and he talks about this using the simple question of, how is your faith with Jesus? Are you exploring a relationship with Jesus? Are you growing in your relationship with Jesus? Are you close in your relationship with Jesus? Or are you living a life centered on Jesus, a Christ-centered life? And the shift from close to Christ-centered, I believe, is this shift from filio love to agape love. And filio is good. It's where we all start, so there's nothing wrong with it. There's no shame in it. But I want you to know that when you are ready, Jesus is ready to offer you more. And in that more, I think that you will find greater joy, greater purpose, and greater meaning in your life. Back to our text for this morning. Peter was sad that Jesus asked him a third time, do you love me? I wonder if he was sad because Jesus asked him the third time, and it goes back to the 3 denials, and the rooster crow and all that. But I wonder if he's sad because Jesus has gone from asking for agape and now simply asking for filio. But he asked him, do you love me? And he replied, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. So here we are back at the original language for feeding, but now the object has changed, and now it is expanded beyond just the little ones, and it now applies to all that are in the pasture. We are called to serve not just God, but we are called to serve our neighbors as well. There is someone in our community that needs you, that needs what you have to offer by virtue of your life experience, your occupation, or your education. Someone needs you, not just someone like you. Someone needs you. And you have a need, I believe. I think you need them. I believe that you need to find them and that you have a need to serve them. Viktor Frankl said, you do not create your mission in life, you detect it. You do not create your mission in life, you detect it. This spring, with our series around purpose and meaning, I hope that you decide to start to move beyond words into action. And that action might only be to start looking, to start searching, to start detecting what your life's mission is. So I don't know what the mission of your life is, but I do believe it's out there. And it might come to you. It might walk up to you. Sometimes life just presents itself to you. But you might have to go looking for it. You might have to try a couple of things. You might have to just try it and see what sticks to figure out what is your purpose. So back to our text again. At verse 18, Jesus says to Peter, I assure you that when you were younger, you tied your own belt and you walked around wherever you wanted to go. When you grow old, you will stretch out your hand and another will tie your belt, and they will lead you where you don't want to go. He said this to show the kind of death by which Peter will glorify God. After saying this, Jesus said to Peter, follow me. Peter, the one who could only offer filial love, actually becomes one of the 3 pillars. He becomes one of the 3 major leaders of the early church. He goes on to become the bishop in Rome. He becomes the first pope. He ends up, as tradition tells us, he eventually is crucified for his faith, and he requests at his crucifixion to be crucified upside down because he viewed himself as unworthy to be crucified in the same manner as Jesus. Boy, that sounds like a man who's gotten to agape love to me. So Jesus' last words to Peter are, follow me. And they are Jesus' invitation to us today. Whether you are at filial love or you have moved into agape love, he invites you to follow him, to explore, to grow with him, and to grow close to him, and eventually to live a life centered on him. Viktor Frankl said that those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. A man who lost everything, who suffered more than any of us can imagine in concentration camps. What he took away from that was a person who had a why to live could bear almost any how. If we make Jesus our why, if we make feeding and tending his little lambs, his sheep, and all others who come into our pasture, if we make that our why, I believe that we will find ourselves blessed. Blessed with less. Blessed with less depression, blessed with less anxiety, blessed with less loneliness. I believe we will find ourselves blessed and blessed with more joy, blessed with more relationships, blessed with more purpose, and blessed with more meaning. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by the lack of meaning and purpose. Jesus invites us to follow him, to grow in our relationship with him, to serve our neighbors with him. And if we will receive this invitation, he will meet us where we are, and he will offer us purpose and meaning and life abundant. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.